What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Today is Marathon 2.0. There will be a 3.0 and you'll see why shortly. It didn't go quite to plan. Breakfast for the day. Back on to the same as first time we did the marathon, chocolate Weetabix. See if they help us for this 4 hours this time round.
Yeah. Because I can't smell anything in these cars. When people get in, they don't like comment. Like, oh.
Marathon 2.0, ready to go. We've got our pedo hats on. Meg's fully ready for Mount Everest. Bike's in. Yeah, so we're ready to go now. A little bit more geared out than last time, but we'll go through that when we get to my place, down to HQ. Just gonna get some bottles of water from the shop. So the main thing that we found with the last marathon, was hydration. So I didn't actually realise, but obviously he wasn't very prepped. I got all the gels and everything sorted. Meg was a dream with that, but then I wasn't hydrating, so I was drinking water, but there wasn't any electrolytes or anything like that. So cramping around the 30k mark was what kind of held us up and held us back from hitting that sub 4 hour. So that's the goal today. Got some hydration tabs, got some pink Himalayan sea salt. I'll go through all that pre-race just to show the hydration tactics. Weather for today is meant to be stormy, but it's kind of holding out so far, so let's see how that goes and hope that holds out for the rest of the race. Right, so hydration, that went well. Bottles of water, put in a electrolyte tab and just put in 1 turn, however much that is, of some pink Himalayan sea salt. The plan is to have a bottle of this every 5k throughout the run, along with 1 energy gel and also a couple of chocolate brownie bites. So we're down at HQ now, ready to run. Megs is looking good. She's planning on wearing this when town reopens. She can get out on a Saturday night. Just having a little stretch, getting ready to go. Just got the bike as well, just going to pump the tyres up, make sure we're ready to go, and then I think we're getting met about halfway round just to refuel with another lot of water bottles, just to make sure Meg's not having to carry all of them. But yeah, pretty much ready to go now. Just under 5k gone, feeling steady.
Keep going. Both doing good? Are you both doing good?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, about 7.5k or so. Feeling good so far. Started down at HQ, down the bypass, down through Leah, onto the Guild Wheel, and round past the sports arena. Coming through Cotton now, coming past my mum's. Any minute now.
We'll share biscuits.
Broughton.
Biscuits and hot tea.
Sorry, what's that?
So we'll share biscuits and hot tea.
Yeah. For you?
Yeah. How far in now?
20.
Only 20k.
Yeah, 100 metres to 20k.
Doing really well. Are you feeling good?
Yeah, starting to come a bit safe now, in a matter. Without stiffening up, but we'll keep it going. Mindset from here on out.
How are your gels and water? Good?
Yeah, well, I've already had to relieve myself in a book.
Oh, nice.
Number 3 though, so we're alright for now. Number 2's brewing. What's going on, guys? So sorry to have to cut the marathon video short there. basically beyond the point that you saw was just about the half marathon point. So beyond that point, it really just became the weather just took a big turn from the half marathon point onwards. Literally just started to kind of hail, really heavy hail, rain, snow, wind, just about every kind of storm related bad weather that you can imagine. So as I mentioned, I think it was the beginning that we were forecasted storms for that day, but we were hoping that they were going to hold out until the end of the race. Unfortunately that wasn't the case, and like I say, from about the half marathon point onwards, it was awful weather, but managed to keep it going. So the goal basically at that point then, tried to hold on to the pace and kind of keep it going. It was difficult, but we pushed on. I was on my own from about 25 to 30k onwards. Came into the park, Avon Park, for those of you who might know it who are local, and my mum and then Meg's mum and dad were waiting with extra water and electrolytes, but obviously because I didn't have any like support, if you will, in terms of Meg on the bike to pass out the bottles at that point. I still had about 12k to go, you know, marathon being 42k. So at that point I decided to just grab 2 bottles because that's all I could carry, and then have 2 water bottles to just run the rest of the race with. Obviously at that point I didn't realise that I'd have a bottle in each hand, and I'm kind of running along and I'm trying to get into one bottle, and it became a bit of a nightmare, but managed to kind of get on through it. So the tactics at that point then became, basically I've got a bottle to last me 6k, and then bin that one, and then I've got a bottle to last me the last 6k. So basically, if for those of you who are local who know Preston, the back end of the Guild Wheel, we'd done all Brockholes, down by the Capital Centre through Avon Park, and then I was up going past down the back of the docks, and then the first time of walking on this point, I'll be honest with you, wasn't due to cramp this time around. The fueling really was helping, but for those of you who've ran any sort of long distances, your joints are just seized up tight, and I think that's where the training comes in. I just didn't have the miles in my legs, so I walked for a couple hundred metres or so at around, I managed to push a bit further. I think it was around 35k, was the first time that I walked for a couple hundred metres. And then had a word with myself and got the pace going again. At that point I looked at my watch, I was soaked to the bone. I couldn't really even unlock my watch because I had wet gloves on and it wasn't registering on the screen, and I wasn't able to my hands were that numb that I couldn't get my gloves off. I could get them off, but then once I'd got them off I wasn't able to actually put them back on again, because it was weird now to think, but your fingers just weren't working. Which was fun, but then managed to carry it on. Like I say, it started to go dark at this point. I think it was kind of 4:30, which is pretty much pitch black at this time of year, and it was the bypass then from the docks all the way up to Freckleton, which is where the end point would be. So I had about 7k to go at this point, and this was, I'd probably say, I know this sounds dramatic, but probably the hardest, what ended up being an hour really at the pace I was running at that point, the hardest hour of my life I'd say, and that might say something that I've probably not been through all that much hard work, but really just mentally just wanting to keep going was difficult. It got to the point where, you know, I think I was coming off onto the main bypass where I was just by the side of the road because there wasn't a path at that point, and I was literally soaked through to the bone. It was heavy hail right in my face, and a lady actually pulled up on the actual dual carriageway where there's not a hard shoulder. She actually, you know, put hazards on and pulled over and thought that I wasn't well and there was something wrong with me, and asked if I needed a lift. She probably thought I was nuts when I said no, but I still had about 4k to go at that point, so I said no, sorry, I'm actually doing this by choice, and carried on, pushed through. Meg's had been the whole backstory there, that she'd managed to get back to the car, and was basically in a car at that point. She must have, she'd kind of managed to find me basically just by driving up and down, guessing where I'd be at that point, based on the pacing, and she actually pulled up alongside me with about 3k to go, and I've never been so tempted in my life to get in the car. but you know, I looked down and I thought, you know, I've not come 39k to give up with the last 3k to go. At this point, the pace was way off. I'd held pace till about the 35k mark, averaging a 5:44 pace, which was what I needed, give or take. But it just became a point of like barely being able to kind of move into the weather, and it was just so cold. So with about 3k to go, Sin Megs decided to keep it going. She then carried on, drove a bit further up the road, and she was kind of like that stopping point and just something to aim for every few hundred meters. Then, sorry, till the end. She got out some chocolate brownies because all I'd had to eat all day was the 4 Weetabix before we set off in the morning, which you saw earlier on in the video, along with like the electrolyte tablets and stuff like that, which, you know, have like next to no macronutrient value. So I was pretty hungry at this point. It's kind of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just had a big, literally just a tub of brownies, which within seconds were wet through. So I must have looked a bit of a sorry sight just wandering down the bypass in the pitch black, eating these soaking wet brownies, like brownie bites from like Tesco, I think they were. But yeah, overall, in the end, finished them off. And the last K through Freckleton was just a case of kind of like hobbling over the line, but it just was a case of just getting the distance done. So yeah, I got it done, headed home, straight in the bath. Like I said, when I got in the car, Meg was pretty worried. I was like shaking uncontrollably, like couldn't, it sounds very dramatic now in hindsight, but I literally just couldn't stop myself from shaking, because I was that cold, and I'd been cold for like a good 2 or 3 hours outside, soaked through. Got straight back, got in the bath, and it took me about 20 minutes to half an hour in a hot bath to stop myself shaking. But yeah, just had a little nap, came around, and just kind of refueled, got plenty of food in, plenty of salts, electrolytes, and just tried to kind of get back to normal. But yeah, a bit of joint pain the next day. So yeah, not much muscular pain, which I think has a lot to do with the amount of weight training that I do generally. The muscles are pretty well conditioned for kind of like a lot of high volume, so I was okay on that front. But in terms of the 4-hour goal, I wasn't able to hit it. I think, as you can see on the side there, that the pace really just dropped off after that 35k. Other than that, it was fairly consistent, up and down a little bit here and there, but generally consistent at around anywhere between kind of 5:20 and 5:40, occasionally dropping down to 6 for the odd one, but averaging out at about 5:44, 5:45 up until that 35k mark. But yeah, going forward, the lesson learned is that at my big old weight, you're not able to run well, I'm not, at least anyway, a sub 4-hour marathon with next to no training. So like I say, in the lead up, I think we'd done a couple of 5 and 10Ks, and then I'd done like a half marathon about 3 weeks before, but other than that, next to no training. So the goal for 2021 is a sub 4-hour marathon. I do definitely think with a bit of training, well, a lot of training, well, not a lot, but you know, I'm going to definitely do at least 3 days a week of running in the lead up to it. Also the weather, I think, is a big part. You know, being soaked through to the bone in hailstone from pretty much the halfway point onwards, just when it starts to get tough, is never going to help. So yeah, this time round, good weather, keeping up with the hydration definitely helped this time around. Maybe try and get a bit more electrolytes in and not quite as much water, because I did have to stop for a couple of wee breaks, which obviously takes time away. And then also a bit more training just to condition the joints to that amount of distance and volume. So yeah, stay tuned for that over this next kind of few months or so. I'm going to be doing a lot more running, and I'm going to try and document a lot more of the process. Anyway, we're here and on now, so if you've made it this far through this 10 minutes of me kind of just ranting on about how much I struggled for a few hours, then thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week in the next video, guys.